Philip Mshelia is a member of faculty at Ahmadu Bello University in Nigeria. Among his other activities, he also consults for the polo games there in Lagos, and is a noted veterinarian, equine veterinarian in that country. But in addition to that, he spent quite a bit of time, again, researching, looking into what the effect of the Chinese hide trade has in Nigeria and the donkeys that are imported primarily from sub-Saharan Africa. So, Philip.
Good morning. Can you hear me? I want to review because I think he has done the hard thinking for me. Alex have done the hard thinking for me, but I want to look at this, the donkey trade in, I'll be looking at the two countries, Niger and Nigeria, and I'll go deeper to tell you what I saw on my visit to most of this, the slaughter slabs. So I targeted the journey of the African donkey from the herd to the slaughter slab. But more importantly, something caught my attention out there and about the Egypt animal. It says the Egypt animals continue amid change. They write about the lobby. It says, even as people struggle for political change, animals create stability and sustenance. I think I can end this presentation by just this quotation. But I think I won't do justice for the people that came all the way. For now, if you look at the transboundary movement of donkeys have increased, and it has risen, and belief system, people's geographical location of these animals have really influenced the way people perceive donkeys, because it all depends. I was telling somebody that if we woke up and you discover that donkeys are sacred as cows in India, I don't think they will suffer the way they're suffering now. Definitely they're going to have a different life. But geographical location affects the way people see donkeys. And there's a serious demand on the consumption of donkeys. In my country, you don't see carcass like this. Every donkey meat is consumed. Every donkey meat is consumed. And because we have this, there's a craving for donkey meat, it has increased the meat, in the market, and people consume a lot, and the skin goes to China. There's no two ways about it. We don't have issues in my country. We don't have issues with stolen donkeys. The trade is legal. Niger is supplying 90% of the donkeys that they slaughter in my country. And you're going to have a look, as I continue, you're going to see that. The last decade also we've seen this increase, and sometimes I ask myself, I said, look, whenever you carry the livelihood studies, if you consider the livelihood studies, you see that it gives you the same answer. Donkeys are kind to people. Donkeys help people a lot, but at the end of the day, people are not kind to donkeys. The same study, you repeat the same study, you get the same information, and that is the truth. And responding, okay, and certain economic factors too in my country have affected the way people, because at the point, if you study the donkey meat and then the trade, you discover that in my country there are times where they sell donkey meat as beef. And it seems that donkey meat is cheaper. And also there's a high demand, like I said earlier, the high demand for donkey skin in my country, have made available the meat for everybody to eat. But before I continue, I just want to introduce Africa. I want to introduce West Africa and where I work. And exactly, this is Niger Republic and this is Nigeria at the border. Virtually all the markets are here. All the markets are here. All this at Agadas at the border of Libya and Morocco. Most of the large herds are found in this place. So this is Africa, this is how it is, and then this is my country, and then this is Niger, and this is an enlargement of it. So virtually, if you look at the trade takes place around this border and then down to the southern part of, part of Nigeria. All right, let me just superimpose Nigeria on American map. It's a very tiny country. You just have a look at this is Nigeria, and you just cut across Illinois, New York, and then Atlanta. It's a very tiny country. And all the trade and all, I call it the axis. And Nigeria seems to be the, and Niger seems to be the axis of donkey, is a hub where all the donkeys are killed and then transported to China. And if you ignore Nigeria and Niger, you're not going to win this fight. You can't ignore these two countries because this is key. Well, to just talk about my country, it looks like this. You have the culture where people adore horses a lot, and you have this procession that takes place annually called the Dobra. And then that's Barbara, our polo manager, and that's the Argentine ambassador to Nigeria. This is Dawn, a British lady, the UNICEF communications director, right there. And then this is the Polish ambassador during the Dobra. And then the emir, and these are polo horses. Some probably have equine metabolic syndrome, I don't know. Yeah, because they are looking chubby. So, and here we have professionals that come to my country to play. This is an Argentine polo player, and then these are some of the grooms. These are Argentine grooms. He was actually waving me when I took the picture. So these are the horses we have. And then we had the US team that came last year to play from Cornell, I guess. So they played representing the US, and the US team actually won against South Africa. And well, this is one of the Goliaths. I don't know where he came from. Okay, this is the field in my polo facility. And this is where people watch, spectators just watching and having fun. And my president is not left behind. He comes to watch polo from time to time. That was before he became the president. And these are my students on ambulatory. And we're right seated here watching polo in case there's any problem. These are my students having fun and a colleague. And then here I said, hug a pony. Barbara have a program. He said hug a pony. She called it hug a pony. And I was wondering, and I asked myself, I said, donkeys need a hug too. They need a hug. Because this lady, I remember the two of them came and they said they want to have a look at my horses, and I was turned to a paparazzi. I have to just snap all these pictures. But at the end of the day, what I asked myself is, look, I think donkeys need a hug. One of the questions people ask me, the donkey traders ask me whenever I travel or whenever I'm carrying out research, is that I just hope that your research is not going to distort our donkey trade. And then another question they ask is that, look, I'm not going to allow you to touch my donkeys. These are questions. And then in Niger Republic, the peasants said they have discovered a lucrative business, and the government is trying to say no to it. They believe the donkey trade is lucrative, they make a whole lot of money, and they feel the government is trying to impede on their right to sell donkeys. Well, let's just look at this. There's a map, not too perfect, but donkeys move from here to this part of my country. Donkeys move from Maradi to this part of my country, and most of the donkeys you have a large herd of donkeys here that are transported into my country, into this market, from Maradi, from Zender. These are regions from Difa into the northeastern part of my country, and then finally they move down to the south. They get slaughtered here and a few places here, and then you have the Atlantic Ocean, and then everything goes to China. That's what happens. These are the markets in the northern part of my country, and then the southern part of my country are being fed by these markets. These are huge donkey markets. You sell donkeys and you slaughter donkeys. No carcass is destroyed. Everything is eaten. There's a growth. Like I said earlier, I said, if this thing continue, we might not, at the end of the day, have a donkey welfare symposium. We might end up attending probably a donkey extinction symposium, because we'll be thinking about fighting everybody because the donkeys are getting extinct. But this is very important. Here, these markets are huge. There are more than 10 livestock markets in my country. They're very huge, and donkeys are sold. And during my research, I remember clearly, I met a dealer that buys 3,000 donkeys every week. 3,000 donkeys every week. And I asked myself that, look, if he buys and sells 3,000 donkeys every week, what alternative do you have for this man? You can outrightly tell him, stop it. It's not possible for you to just tell him, stop it. You must have an alternative for him. If you don't, then you're going to be in for big trouble. 3,000 donkeys, I saw him, I discussed with him. He buys everything from Niger down to my country. 3,000 donkeys, that is one trader buying 3,000 donkeys. Let's go. All right, and this is the map, a rough one that we have. So this is one of the markets here, another market, the three major markets. So you have everything moved into, in the northern part of my country, the one here, they banned, slaughter of donkeys have been banned in this part of the country. But here we have it in the northern part of my country, Kaduna, that's where my university is situated, we have a slaughter slab. There's one important thing about this slaughter. It was, it was closed down, but they spent about $160,000 to get it open. And it's a slaughter field, it's not even a slaughterhouse, it's a field. Very filthy. And then you have this, and I call this, from this line, any animal that crosses this line doesn't come back alive. Yeah, because there's a craving for donkey meat. Any animal that crosses this line of my country doesn't come back, will not come back alive. Whether a cattle or because there's a craving for donkey meat. This is from Niger Republic. They're just moving into my country. This was taken just just a few weeks ago. They move in herd of 500 to like 3,000 donkeys moving at the same time, all from Niger Republic. They go through the customs and they pay about $10 for each donkey through the customs. So all these animals, I don't even think now these animals are alive. I don't think they're alive. So that is the truth. And sometimes you just see them at the northeastern part of my country, there's my Adwa market. You see few moving, they're all moving to the market to be sold. And sometimes this is how filthy some of the markets look like and busy, where people make a living with these donkeys. This is Jigawa State, another part of northwestern part of my country. I took this still recently. And then this is how they're all packed in one place in the market. So if you look at the body condition score of these animals, they look good. So these ones go to the southern part of my country, they go standing. But some are cuddled up and tied up, and you're going to see some of the effects. And then this is the slaughter slab I told you about. It was closed down, and now they reopened it after spending $160,000. At the middle of my country, this is it. And you just have a look at it. Just the picture tells you the conditions, because all the donkeys look as if they're just sickle-like in shape. They're just looking very weak. You just look at them all looking very weak, and then you look at the dorsum, look at the rectal prolapse, very common in donkeys that are actually caught and tied up in trucks. Well, for this, I decided to just put this slide, and I am not really, well, it talks about the donkey policy in my country. I don't think the government care about donkeys. I don't think they do. They don't even care about the cattle that we have. But Alex have mentioned that. They're banned it. But 90% of the donkeys that come to my country, come into my country to be sold, come from Niger. And Niger asks, the law is that we're going to shoot you at sight if we see you trading in donkeys. But it's not working, because 90% is a feeder market for my country. It feeds my country. If you stop this trade in Niger, that's the end of this trade. Because my country, we don't have that much donkeys. Everything comes from Niger. And they say, shoot at sight if we see you, but they pass through the customs and they get everything right. Nothing happened because they pay money. They talked about conservation program 1992 in my country, but it never worked. We have about 100 donkeys just roaming around in the research institute. And then the establishment of abattoir in Kenya, Alex mentioned that, and the rest. But all this are on paper. They are all on paper. They are not enforced. The donkey trade is booming. Well, some of the welfare challenges that you see in poor loading, I prefer to just give a pictorial review because I don't intend to stay long. But this is how donkeys are loaded, tied up, waiting to be thrown on this funny looking truck. And then the next one, I'm the one driving, and the Cornell student that worked with me, Jocelyn, we just came back and I just told her, we need that shot. And then here the truck, something went wrong with this truck, and there are about 160 all stacked up in this truck. 160. So something went wrong with this truck, and then they brought these animals out. And some you could just see. I forgot that I had my good camera in the back, so I just used my phone. It's looking funny, but at least the information is there. And once you cuddle and then put them together, they end up biting each other. So the aggressive ones end up biting each other. And you see some of them end up being lame because you tie them up for 20 hours. Some of the nerves, and then numbness. And then the terrible thing you see when you cuddle these animals on the truck and then you tie them for 20 hours. Probably when you rule out tenesmus and you rule out helminthosis, you know that definitely the increase in intra-abdominal pressure actually causes this. Probably they cough. This is what you see. You don't see this in the donkeys walked through the bush. You only see this in donkeys that are stacked, tied up for 20 hours. The rectal prolapse. You see type 1 to type 4 rectal prolapse. And this is the same typical market. That's how it looks. And most of the leaves here they are just poisonous leaves. They are not leaves that are meant for donkeys. They just give, these are poisonous leaves. Highly toxic. But they just feed them anyway. And you see the women, you can see the meat. I didn't just want to bring up these pictures because they just look graphic. But we're going to I'm going to show you more clips, some clips that tend to be graphic. But I want to say that we just have to pick courage to watch this so that we can find a way forward for these animals. It's super graphic. Because what they do in this lab is that they stab donkeys with cutlass. They say they call it stunning. And you find donkeys tied up, and then the fetal wastage. Alex mentioned that. And then you see one dying and sudden death, probably hypolipemia. And then you see a terrible stick that is used on donkeys. And you have this ones tied up. But one important thing about this is not that it's not the normal bone, rope bone. The problem with these donkeys is that they're used to, they're all like free. They are always like a free range. So once they get them tied up, the donkeys keep struggling with the rope. So you can see this. And then he changed it to another name. Because they are not used to it, they're in herd. In the southern part of Niger, they herd, like you see somebody having like 1,000 donkeys or 2,000 donkeys. He goes in there once they fall, he just mark it, he makes a mark and then come back. So these donkeys are not used to rope. So that is, you can just see this, they just cut it. This one is lying down and this one's standing. It's terrible. This is a scenario you see in most of this. Sometimes they bring in the donkey with the dam and then the Jenny and the baby. Sometimes they just bring just the babies, and it's horrible. And these are the control posts in my country. These are the animal control posts. These posts are supposed to check disease. They do carry out disease surveillance and then look at the welfare of animals. These control posts are working, but what they do is that they tax people. They extort money from the trucks. They don't look at the welfare of the animals, they don't, but we have this existing in my country. So once they take these animals from the north, they move to the south, so they have to pass through this control post. But the posts are not working because they are just carrying out multiple taxation and then they extort money from people. Well, the challenges in transit, like I just mentioned, is that they collect a lot of money from people, multiple taxation, and that's what they're interested in. You just collect tax and then you let loose. And if you don't pay, they ask you to park, and then the donkeys will die. For every trip, they lose nothing less than 20 donkeys. This is where the issue is, because it's, yeah. Okay. Typically, this is what you see at the northwestern part. We took this video with Jocelyn from Cornell University that worked with me for 8 weeks. And when we came here, I told her, welcome to Africa, because this is what you see. That is reality, and we can't run away from that people treat animals. People are not kind to animals. And the next video, okay, here you see the pregnant ones that Alex mentioned, already soaked in water, the rain, and that's how. And you see they only have stover, they don't have grass, there's no hay available for them. And the next one is how they've been okay. And we have the next one. Can we get them for me?
That's as low as it goes.
So, this is graphic, this is graphic, this is super graphic, this is super graphic, so
Don't cut it first. Cut it better.
I think we should just leave it there. What they do in this is, they stop this donkeys, and this thing happened to virtually every donkey in this country. In my country. They stab it with cutlass, they call it stunning, and that's it. Like Alex said, there's still hope. Cornell sent in a student, and we were able to work with some donkey people in the same market. Jocelyn happened to be a very courageous lady that worked with me for 8 weeks to treat donkeys in Nigeria. For me, my conclusion is simple. I said the future of welfare will depend on the thoughts that emanate from this symposium. And my quote is that donkey science must rise on the consciousness of human kindness to establish an environment free from donkey abuse and cruelty. That whatever research we're going to do, the center of every research we're going to do should improve on the welfare of donkeys. I want to thank Eric, Linda Mida, Amy, thank you so much for taking me to China, Erin, Mark Russell, Purdue University, Landhofer, Indiana, Constanza, then Jocelyn, Professor Kudi, and then Babangida. Thank you so much.